The sky above the scrapyard was always gray, choked with smoke from the nearby fusion plant. Old starships, broken droids, and melted hulls lay in twisted piles. This was where Cale worked. He wasn't a pilot, not a soldier, not an officer. Just a junk hauler, a man who scavenged broken tech to sell for credits. But today, something was different. He wasn't alone. A huge cargo shuttle roared above the yard and landed with a ground-shaking thud. Kyle looked up, squinting at the bright thrusters. No one ever landed here, not unless they were desperate. The doors opened with a hiss, and from the smoke, she stepped out. She was at least 8 feet tall, muscles like steel cables under rough skin. Her eyes glowed faint blue, and her armor was scratched and battle-worn. Long braided cords hung from her head like ropes. She carried nothing but a collar chain and a sealed crate. Cale froze. He had seen aliens before, even worked alongside them. But not her kind. Not one like this. She walked straight toward him and dropped the crate at his feet without a word. Then she spoke, voice low and steady. "You said crates. I'll carry crates." Kyle blinked. "Wait, you're the one who answered my barter post?" "I carry," she said again. He hadn't been serious. His listing had been a joke. "We'll trade starship wreck for strong labor. Must carry crates, no credits." No one had replied. Until now. "Look," he said. "This ship's a ruin. It's just a frame. Nothing works." She glanced past him. Behind Cale was the rusting shell of a mid-class freighter. Burned-out engine, broken bridge, missing panels. It was barely holding together with the help of steel ropes and his stubbornness. "I'll carry. You fix," she said. Cale rubbed the back of his neck. "You've got the wrong idea. This isn't a warship. It's a trash can in space. I sleep in the cargo bay with the rats. No hot food, no fuel, no toilet. I've had worse." He watched her eyes. There was no humor, no lies, just quiet strength. This wasn't a trick. She wanted to work. She wanted to stay. "You got a name?" he asked. "They call me Lyra." He paused, then laughed under his breath. "All right, Lyra. You want to carry. Crate's fine. But if that reactor explodes again, I'm not hauling your body out." She nodded once. And so the deal was done. No contracts, no handshakes, just two strangers in a scrapyard, one broken man and one giant alien. Over the next 2 hours, Cale showed her around the wreck. She didn't speak much. But when he asked her to lift something, she didn't just lift. She moved. The heavy doors. That took him half an hour to crank open. She ripped them clean off. The jammed parts in the engine core. She reached in with her massive hand and pulled them out like berries from a bush. She didn't ask questions. Didn't complain. Just worked. That night, as Kyle sat near the old heater in the cargo bay, he looked over at her. Lyra had stacked every crate he owned into perfect rows. She was sitting on the floor, cross-legged, eating from a ration tin. Silent. Still. Something strange stirred in Kyle's chest. Not fear, not attraction, just wonder. Who was she? Why would someone like her trade her strength for junk? Outside, the junkyard was quiet, but deep in the stars above, war had begun. Fleets were moving, borders burning, and somewhere, someone, had just activated a beacon. It was buried deep in the crate Lyra had brought. Cale didn't know yet. But when that beacon blinked to life, it sent a signal across the stars. And old enemies turned their gaze toward the scrapyard. Because the wreck he lived in, it wasn't always junk. And the giantess he just hired, she wasn't always just muscle. Cale didn't sleep well that night. Something about the way Lyra had dropped that crate bothered him. It wasn't just heavy. It hummed. And when she wasn't looking, he had scanned it with a handheld reader. The scan gave a warning he hadn't seen in years. Class 9 energy. Signature detected. That meant military-grade tech, dangerous, restricted, illegal. He should have reported it. But instead, he dragged it into the hold and covered it with an old tarp. Lyra was already awake when he got up. She stood outside the ship, stretching silently under the gray morning sky. Even in rest, she looked like a living weapon. Calm, cold, coiled. Her eyes flicked toward him. "You didn't open the crate," she said. "Nope," he lied. She nodded. They got to work. Kyle was surprised by how quickly things changed. Lyra wasn't just strong, she was precise. Every crate she moved, every panel she repaired, it was like she knew this ship better than he did. He finally asked her, "You've worked on ships like this before?" She touched the cracked hull gently. This ship knew war. It was once called the Ember Crown. Kale laughed. "This thing? A warship?" Lyra didn't smile. "I fought beside ships like this. Before." Before what? He wanted to ask but didn't. Later that day, while Lyra was outside clearing space in the scrapyard, Kale slipped into the hold and pulled the tarp off the crate. He stared at it again. Smooth black metal. No seams, no handle. Just one glowing symbol on the top. Alien language, etched in violet light. He touched it. Nothing happened. But when he pulled his hand back, the top of the crate melted away, liquid metal folding open like a blooming flower. Inside wasn't gold or weapons. It was a core, round, humming, and glowing blue. An AI warbrain, one of the kind used to control advanced warships during the Rift conflicts. These things were banned across half the galaxy. Even pirates didn't touch them anymore. Kyle took a step back. "What the hell is this, Lyra?" He turned. She was standing in the doorway, watching. "That," she said softly, "is the ship's soul." Kale's mouth was dry. "You brought it here. You knew what this ship was." She nodded. "I knew the moment I saw your post this wasn't junk, just broken like me." He stepped closer. "Why are you doing this?" She looked tired, not just physically, but deep down, like someone who had lived through too many wars, too many choices. "I carried that core across 6 systems," she said. "Smuggled it in pieces, paid in blood because I needed a ship. Not a fast one, not a famous one, just one no one was looking for." Kale looked around the hold, at the broken panels and hanging wires. "No one's looking here, all right." She walked past him, crouched near the crate and gently touched the glowing core. It pulsed under her hand. The ship responded. Lights flickered, systems buzzed. For the first time in years, the Ember Crown breathed. Kale couldn't believe it. "You're really going to wake this thing up?" Lyra stood. "I'll carry crates, I'll fix your ship, I'll protect it, but when the time comes, I'll need it to fly." Kyle didn't say no, because part of him had already decided. He was done being the junk man. This ship had a past, maybe it had a future too, and so did he. The core hummed louder with each hour. Kale could feel the change in the ship. It was like something asleep had started to dream again. Power trickled into long dead circuits. Lights on old panels blinked. Even the floor beneath his boots felt warmer. He stood in the engineering bay, staring at a console that hadn't worked in years. Now it pulsed with soft blue light. "You woke it up," he whispered. Lyra stood behind him, arms folded. "Only the beginning." Kale turned to her. "You knew exactly how to install the core. You knew every part of this ship like it was yours." "It was mine," she said quietly. "For a short time. During the last war. I was cargo crew, low rank, but I remember the layout." He watched her for a moment. She wasn't showing off. There was no pride in her voice, just memory. Kale nodded slowly. "You're not just muscle, are you?" "No." He didn't push further. Instead, he got to work. Together, they spent the next 2 days repairing systems that hadn't seen power in a decade. With the core linked to the grid, small things came back fast. Lighting, ventilation, basic doors. Bigger things took longer. By day 3, they had running water. By day 4, the reactor was stable. And by day 5, they had weapons. Kale stood in front of the old control panel in the bridge. A large circular screen now showed red targeting systems and rotating shield diagnostics. Static buzzed, then a voice came through. "Ember Crown system integrity. 41%. War protocols offline, civilian protocols online, awaiting command input. The voice wasn't robotic. It was smooth, deep, and calm. Kyle looked at Lyra. It talks. It thinks, she replied. Be kind to it. It remembers the war, too. Kyle wasn't sure what that meant, but he nodded. Later that night, he found himself staring at the stars from the top deck. Lyra joined him, sitting cross-legged with a metal cup in her hand. She sipped in silence. He finally spoke. You really believe this ship will fly again? She looked out at the dark sky. Ships don't die. They sleep. They just need someone to remember them. Kale smiled. That's poetic for someone who carries crates. She didn't smile back. I used to carry bodies. The air grew quiet. Was there when the fleet fell, she said. My people died with honor. But honor doesn't feed you, doesn't save you. So I ran. Kyle didn't know what to say. So he didn't. I carried what I could, she went on. The ship's core, the last piece of what I believed in. I kept it alive until I found the wreck that used to be the Ember Crown. I knew it instantly, even rusted and broken. You saw my stupid ad? Kale muttered. I saw a man who didn't understand what he had. That meant no one else would, either. It was safe. Kale looked down at his hands. You could have just taken it, forced me out. I don't want to fly alone. He blinked. She stood and left without another word. Kale stayed on the deck for a long time. The next morning, he woke to alarms, a flashing red warning on the panel. Unregistered ship detected. Low orbit. No beacon. No ID. Lyra was already in the cockpit, her eyes focused. They followed the core, she said. They're here. Kyle felt his stomach turn. Who's they? He asked. She didn't answer. The war wasn't over. It had just arrived. The warning lights kept pulsing as Kale stared at the screen. The unidentified ship circled above them like a bird waiting to strike. It wasn't broadcasting a name. No flag, no signal. That meant one thing. It didn't want to be seen. Kale swallowed hard. Pirates? Lyra's face was hard. Worse. She typed something into the controls. The Ember Crown sensors began to scan deeper. Heat signatures, hull shape, drive patterns, all of it screamed old military. Kale stepped closer. Who are they? They call themselves Scorchers, she said quietly. A faction that hunts down war relics. They destroy everything connected to the Rift Wars. They want the past erased. Kale blinked. Wait, you mean they know about this ship? They will soon. He felt cold. Why? Why would anyone care about a broken old freighter? Lyra turned her glowing eyes toward him. Because it's not just a freighter. This ship used to house one of the last quantum fusion drives. It's fast, cloaked, and armed. If we fix it, if the core fully awakens, they'll see it as a threat. Kyle looked around the bridge. It still smelled like rust and oil. The seats were cracked, the panels dented. This thing can't fight off a gunship. Not yet. Lyra stood and walked to the weapons console. But it remembers how. Kale frowned. You think the ship still has weapon protocols? It's remembering more each day, she said. The core is waking up. We just have to give it time. Time they didn't have. The enemy ship was descending now. Scans showed its hull opening, landing claws deploying. Kyle ran to the lower deck, grabbed his old shock rifle. It barely worked, but it was all he had. He found Lyra suiting up, strapping heavy armor across her chest. You're really gonna fight them? He asked. I've fought worse. Kale hesitated. You could still leave. Take the core. Run. Lyra looked at him. And leave the Ember Crown in pieces again? Leave you behind? No. The lights dimmed as the enemy ship neared the ground. The console buzzed again. A voice came through the comms this time. Low and mechanical. You are harboring a Class 9 core in a forbidden vessel. Step outside. Surrender it, or be erased. Kyle stared at the speaker. They sound serious. They are. Do we have any shields? Half a panel on the left. Wing, Lyra said. Engines? Only for landing. Cannons? 1. Jammed. Kale laughed nervously. We're so dead. Lyra looked calm. Not if the ship remembers. Just then, the AI's voice returned. Threat proximity detected. Defensive protocol available. Last stand mode. Ship integrity insufficient. Manual override required. Lyra placed her hand on the console. Manual override accepted. Ember crown preparing for defense. Kyle jumped as panels across the ship flickered. Long dead circuits surged with light. The walls hissed as vents snapped open. Something old was waking up. Outside, the enemy ship landed. Its ramp dropped. 3 tall figures in smooth armor stepped down, scanning the wreck. One pointed toward the hull. They're coming, Kyle said. Lyra nodded. Then we greet them. The ship groaned beneath their feet. Power crawled through, its veins like fire through dry grass. Kale could feel it, some kind of deep hum under the metal. Kale, Lyra said. He looked at her. This ship isn't junk anymore. He nodded slowly. No, he said. It's a weapon. The Ember Crown shuddered as its system surged back to life. Blue lines of light ran along the walls, tracing ancient circuits long forgotten. Kale stood frozen, rifle shaking slightly in his grip. Lyra moved like she had done this 100 times, calm and steady, checking panels, tapping buttons, listening to the heartbeat of the ship. Outside, the 3 armored Scorchers scanned the hull. One of them raised a weapon and fired a test shot into the side. Sparks flew and Kale flinched. They're testing our shell, he said. They'll breach soon, Lyra replied, eyes still on the screen. Unless we breach first. Kale looked around. We've got 1 cannon. Jammed. That's not breaching anything. Lyra turned to the console. I don't need the cannon. She brought up the internal map. The old emergency vent systems were still connected to auxiliary power. She rerouted pressure valves and activated the cooling fans at full force. What are you doing? Kale asked. Using junk like a weapon. The vents along the hull exploded outward, releasing a blast of superheated steam and air. The nearest Scorcher was thrown back, smashing into the side of their own ship. The others raised weapons. Kale ducked as return fire hit the hull. Sparks flew again. The AI's voice filled the bridge. Hull integrity 82%. Threat confirmed. Permission to engage, Lyra shouted. Permission granted. Suddenly, the ceiling above them split and a single rotating turret descended. It sparked and shook, but it powered up. The barrel turned toward the enemy ship. Fire! Kale yelled. Firing! A pulse shot from the turret. The beam struck one of the Scorchers, lifting them off their feet and slamming them into the ground with a smoking chest plate. The second fired back, hitting the turret, breaking its motor with a grinding snap. Kale dropped into cover. 1 shot. That's all we had. Better than none, Lyra replied, grabbing a side weapon from the wall. She moved to the exit hatch. Where are you going? Kyle shouted. She looked back at him. To finish this. Kyle watched her jump from the ramp into the dust. The remaining Scorcher turned too late. Lyra was already upon him. She swung her, fist like a hammer, striking his helmet and knocking him to the dirt. Kyle watched through the broken screen, heart racing. She moved like a storm, grabbing the last one by the arm, twisting, slamming. It was raw, it was brutal, it was precise. In seconds, all 3 attackers lay broken or dead. Lyra stood alone, breathing heavy, eyes glowing. She turned toward Kale and raised her hand. Clear. He exhaled, finally letting go of the breath he'd been holding. A moment later, the AI spoke again. Intrusion neutralized. Ship defenses holding, awaiting further orders. Kyle stumbled down to meet her outside. Smoke drifted in the wind. The enemy ship sparked where it sat. The 3 bodies twitched or lay still. You okay? He asked. Lyra nodded. Minor hit. Armor held. Kyle looked down at the attackers. They came fast. They always do. He turned to the enemy ship, We should salvage what we can. Agreed. As they looted the ship, Kyle found something strange inside. A hollow disk. When he activated it, a message played. A Scorcher commander spoke. The Ember Crown must not rise again. All fragments of its past must be burned. If the core is active, destroy it, and anyone who dares link with it. Kale froze. They know about you, he said. Lyra's voice was low. They know about you now, too. Kale closed the disk. We'll be ready next time. She looked at him. Then we'd better make this ship fly again. He stared at the Ember Crown, still broken in places, still rusted and bent, but alive. He nodded. Let's bring her back. The Ember Crown was no longer just a wreck. After the attack, Kale worked like a man on fire. Every part he had ever salvaged, every panel he'd stored in dusty bins, every wire, screw, and forgotten circuit. He sorted them all and brought them to life. The junk he once thought worthless now had meaning, and Lyra was always beside him. They didn't talk much while they worked, but there was a rhythm to it. She lifted, aligned, held things steady. He welded, repaired, rewired. Where his hands were careful, hers were powerful. Where his mind was quick, hers was focused. By the third day, one of the engines hummed to life for a full 10 seconds. Kale whooped and jumped like a kid. Did you see that? It spun! It spun! Lyra gave a small smile. Almost proud of you. Looked at her surprised. Was that a joke? She raised an eyebrow. Don't get used to it. That night they ate in the cargo bay sitting on crates. The sky outside was dark, the stars flickering faintly above the yard's jagged walls. Kale sipped his water. You really believe this old thing can fly again? Lyra nodded. She wants to. You can feel it now. He did. The hum of the core was deeper now. It reached the bones of the ship. The AI voice had grown clearer, smoother. Even the lights flickered less. Kyle leaned back. You know, before all this I was planning to sell the frame, get a few credits, maybe move to a cleaner sector, start a parts stall, and now? He smiled. Now I want to see the stars again. Lyra looked down at her hands. I used to travel between systems on warships, convoys, escort missions. But I never saw the stars, not really. Not until I stopped running. Kale asked quietly, Why did you stop? She was silent for a while. Then she said, Because I was tired of surviving, I wanted to start living. And when I saw your post, something told me this was where that would begin. He didn't answer, just stared into his ration pack. Later that night, Kyle woke to a strange sound. Not alarms, not engines. It was music. Soft, ancient. The kind played by old earth strings, laced with static and memory. He climbed to the bridge and found Lyra there, sitting alone. The lights were low. She was watching old holo footage playing on the screen. Soldiers boarding ships, fighters launching, crowds cheering, flags waving in a language Kale didn't recognize. It's from the core, she said. Memories the ship still holds. He watched for a while, then he asked, Do you think it feels pain? The AI? She said. It remembers the loss, the fire, the silence. But I think it also remembers hope. Kale sat beside her. Maybe that's what we are, he said. Broken things, trying to remember how to hope. Lyra looked at him. Then let's help the ship remember too. The next day, Kale connected the auxiliary power to the main fuel chamber. Lyra calibrated the inertial dampeners. When they flipped the switch, the whole ship groaned. But nothing exploded. Kale grinned. Progress. Next, flight tests. He nodded. Let's start small. Real small. Outside, the scrapyard wind picked up, dust blowing across the ground. In the far distance, a small drone watched from the edge of a rusted hill. Its eye blinked once, then vanished. The next morning, the scrapyard was quiet. Kyle climbed onto the ship's roof to check the solar collectors. Lyra was in the lower bay, running diagnostics on the stabilizers. Everything felt almost normal until Kyle saw the footprints. They were faint, half covered in dust. But they weren't his. And they were too small to be Lyra's. Someone, or something, had been watching the Ember Crown during the night. He climbed down quickly. "Lyra!" She appeared moments later, eyes sharp. "What happened?" He pointed toward the prints. "We had visitors." She crouched beside the tracks, tracing them with her fingers. Light pressure, wide steps, not human. Kale's stomach turned. "Spies?" "Scouts," she said, "which means more are coming." Kale ran to the bridge. The AI responded instantly. Proximity scan engaged. Passive drones detected. Optical cloaking in use. Interference at 3%. "They're jamming us," Kyle muttered. "Just like the last time." Lyra joined him. "We need to move this ship." Kyle laughed nervously. "Move it where? It hasn't even passed lift test 1 yet." "We'll make it." Kyle stared at her. "You're serious?" "Yes." He looked back at the console. "All right, then let's do it." The rest of the day they worked without rest. Kyle rerouted every backup line into the engines. Lyra cleared the landing path using brute force, tossing entire scrap mounds aside. By sunset, they had a clear shot straight up. Kyle looked around the bridge. "If this thing flies, it'll be a miracle." Lyra buckled herself into the co-pilot seat. "Then let's witness a miracle." Kale took a breath. "AI, initiate lift sequence." "Confirmed. Thruster charge at 38%. Structural strain levels." "Approaching limit. Recommend emergency precautions." Kale smirked. "Of course you do." He pulled the throttle. The engines groaned. Dust swirled. The ground beneath them shook. Kale gritted his teeth as metal screamed around them. Then, with a loud burst, the Ember Crown lifted off the ground. Kale shouted in joy. "We're up. We're actually up." Lyra kept her eyes on the console. "Stabilize pitch, don't climb too fast." Kyle adjusted carefully. The ship hovered 15 feet above the yard, balanced on uneven thrusters, and then something flashed below. A missile launched from behind a pile of scrap. "Missile," Kale shouted. Lyra slammed her palm into the override panel. "Dodge now!" Kale spun the ship hard. The missile screamed past the left wing, grazing the outer hull. Sparks flew. A warning blared. "Wing integrity compromised. Rerouting stabilizer." "Control," Lyra growled. "Too many eyes on us." Kyle turned the ship toward the East Canyon wall. "If we can reach the ridge, we can break line of sight." "Go." The Ember Crown surged forward, engines coughing but holding. Another missile launched. This one came from the north. Kale jerked the controls and clipped a tower of junk, sending parts flying. They broke through the top of the scrapyard wall just as the second missile exploded behind them. The blast rocked the ship. Panels burst open. Lights flickered, but they didn't fall. They flew. Kale didn't stop until they were 5 miles out, gliding low through the canyons. When they finally landed on a flat, rocky ridge, the ship wheezed and hissed like a tired animal. Kale slumped in his seat. "We're alive." "Barely," Lyra said, checking her arm where a metal shard had cut through her armor. Kyle leaned forward, panting. "They attacked with missiles. This wasn't just a warning." "No," she said. "They want us gone." He looked at her. "What do we do now?" She stood slowly and looked out at the stars. "We stop hiding," she said, "and we rebuild faster." Kyle nodded. "Then let's make the Ember Crown stronger than ever." Above them, one last drone hovered high in the dark, watching, recording, waiting. The Ember Crown rested on a rocky cliff, its hull scorched, armor dented, and panels barely holding together. But the core still pulsed, strong and steady. It wasn't just alive. It was awake. Kale stepped outside into the chill night air, wiping grease from his hands. Behind him, sparks danced in the air as Lyra welded new armor plating using scraps they had salvaged from the canyon below. Neither of them spoke much now. There was too much to do, and too little time. Kyle looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Scorchers were regrouping. He knew they wouldn't just send drones or scouts next time. They'd bring a ship, maybe more than one. And this time, they'd come to kill. He walked over to Lyra. "Armor plating's holding?" "Mostly," she said, standing straight. Sweat ran down her temple. "We'll need a real forge to do more. But it'll hold for one fight." Kale sighed. "Do you think we'll win that fight?" Lyra looked at him. "We'll survive it. That's enough for now." Kale hesitated. "Why are they after this ship so badly?" She was silent for a moment, then finally said, "Because this ship was once a sanctuary. It carried survivors from systems the Scorchers tried to erase. When the war ended, they wanted to destroy every record of what happened. The Ember Crown refused to shut down." He frowned. "So it remembers the truth." "Yes," she said, "and so do I." Kale looked at her. "Why didn't you tell me that from the beginning?" "I didn't trust you," she admitted. "But I do now." He nodded slowly. "I didn't trust myself either. I thought I was just a junkman with nothing left to offer." Lyra placed a heavy hand on his shoulder. "You're more than that now." He smiled. "I'd better be. Because tomorrow we test the weapons." She turned back toward the ship. "Let's make sure they fire." They worked through the night. Kyle rewired the plasma coils, while Lyra installed targeting rotors and mounted the scavenged Scorcher launcher under the main wing. The AI guided them, responding quicker than before. Its voice was now smooth, almost familiar. "Weapon sync complete. Turret range 300 meters. Target lock system 68% operational." Kyle grinned. "That's more like it." By sunrise, the ship looked different. Still damaged, but focused, like a beast ready to bite back. Kyle walked around to the rear deck where Lyra was tightening bolts. He watched her for a moment, then asked, "After all this, where would you go, if we make it out?" She kept working. "I don't know. Maybe find others like me." There were survivors, people scattered. Some went underground. Some disappeared. Kyle nodded. "You'd leave?" She looked at him. "Would you?" He opened his mouth, then stopped. He hadn't thought about that. Before Lyra came, he had no direction. Now everything had changed. "I think I'd follow the Ember Crown," he said. "Wherever she flies." Lyra gave a rare smile. "Then you'd better make her fly well." As they stood there in silence, the AI's voice echoed again. "Warning. Long-range scans detect energy buildup. Estimated time to contact, 27 hours. Kale's heart dropped. "They're coming." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Then we finish what we started." Kale turned to the ship. "Let's make her ready." The next sunrise came blood red. Clouds moved fast across the sky, pushed by rising winds. The Ember Crown sat ready on the rocky ridge, its shadow long across the canyon floor. Inside, the air felt heavy, like the ship knew what was coming. Gil adjusted his harness at the pilot's seat. Beside him, Lyra checked her arm-mounted plasma cutter, freshly charged and glowing. "All systems green," Kyle said. "As green as we're gonna get." "Good," Lyra replied, "because they're here." A deep rumble filled the air. Moments later, black dots appeared in the sky. 1, then 3, then 6. Sleek ships with long wings, no visible windows, and glowing red engines. Scorcher vessels. Heavily armed. No warning this time. No words. Just war. Kyle's fingers tightened on the controls. "They're forming a circle, surrounding us." "They'll strike at once," Lyra said. "Crush us before we can lift off." Kale glanced at the AI panel. "AI, are shields online?" "Partial shields at 42%. Forward only. Weapon system charged. Defensive protocols initiated." Lyra looked at him. "You ready?" "No," Kale said. "But that's never stopped me before." He pulled the throttle. The Ember Crown lifted once more, engines roaring louder than ever before. The ship rose through dust and wind as the enemy closed in. The first shot came fast, an energy beam slicing past the right wing. Kale rolled the ship hard, and the shot missed by inches. Another blast followed, this one hitting the outer hull. Alarm screamed. Damage to hull. Minor. Turret engaged. Locking targets. Lyra ran to the weapons console. Firing now. The mounted turret launched 2 rapid blasts, striking one of the Scorcher ships dead on. The enemy vessel spun out of control and crashed into the rocks below in a fiery bloom. Kale shouted, "One down!" But the others moved faster now, weaving through the sky like wasps. 2 dove in from opposite sides. Lyra redirected the turret, but one enemy beam hit the port engine. Kale grunted as the ship jerked hard. "Left engine's hit." Lyra didn't hesitate. "Rerouting power, keep her level." Kyle fought the controls. This crate was never meant for dogfights. "She is now," Lyra shouted. As more shots came, the AI suddenly spoke again. "Critical option available. Memory unlock protocol confirmed. Do you wish to engage legacy mode?" Kyle frowned. "Legacy mode?" Lyra's eyes widened. "It remembers its past. It's full combat code." Kyle shouted, "Yes, engage it." The console went dark for a second. Then the entire bridge lit up. Golden lines traced across the walls. The floor vibrated, and the ship's engines surged. New targeting systems appeared. On the screen, faster, clearer, smarter. "Legacy mode engaged. Welcome back, Ember Crown, all systems optimal." Kale's jaw dropped. "That's what I'm talking about." The turret rotated faster now, tracking multiple enemies. 2 more Scorcher ships were tagged and hit before they could finish their attack run. Explosions lit the sky. But the biggest ship hadn't moved yet. A larger vessel, jet black with no markings, hovered behind the battle. It hadn't fired, hadn't spoken. It was waiting. Kale saw it on the screen. "That one's command." Lyra's voice was firm. "It's here for the core. It won't leave without it." Kale looked at her. "Then let's make sure it leaves in pieces." The Ember Crown turned, engines roaring, light pulsing through its rebuilt frame. Kyle took the controls. Lyra braced herself, and they flew straight at the dark ship. The Ember Crown soared through the sky like it was born to fly. The air around, it shimmered with energy, the hull glowing as the core pulsed faster with every second. Kale gripped the controls tightly, guiding the ship straight toward the command vessel ahead. It was enormous, twice their size, hovering silently like a black mountain in the sky. "They're powering up," Kale said. "Main cannon charging." Lyra stood at the tactical panel, her hands glowing as she rerouted energy into shields and weapons. "Then we strike first," the AI's voice echoed calmly. "Target locked. Suggest firing disruptor burst at weak point. Upper ventral shield node." Kyle nodded. "Lyra?" "Do it," she said. He pressed the trigger. The Ember Crown's main turret surged with golden light and fired. A beam of pure energy tore through the air, striking the command ship's shield node dead on. Sparks burst from its hull. The black ship trembled, shields flickering. "They're hit!" Kale shouted. But the enemy fired back. A massive energy pulse exploded across the sky, striking the Ember Crown's front hull. The ship rocked violently. Alarms screamed. Panels burst open. Smoke filled the bridge. Shields down to 12%. Core strain critical. System overload imminent. Kyle coughed, trying to see through the smoke. "We can't take another hit like that." Lyra grabbed the emergency control. "We don't need to." She opened a hidden panel in the floor and pulled out a small device. An old, rusted override. Kale stared. "What is that?" She looked at him. "The Ember Crown's original burn command. A last resort." "You mean self-destruct?" "No," she said. "Not destruction. Sacrifice. The ship uses every ounce of stored energy to release a shockwave. One blast, it disables anything within range." Kyle blinked. "And us?" "We're inside the range." He stood frozen. Lyra placed the key into the core terminal. Kale grabbed her wrist. "There has to be another way." She looked into his eyes. "We've already come further than anyone thought we could. You made this ship fly again. You made me believe again. But we can't let them win. Kale's voice cracked. Then we go down together? Lyra didn't smile, but her voice was soft. No. You survive. She pulled a small pack from her side and shoved it into his hands. An emergency eject harness. No, Kale said. You're not staying behind. I'm not asking, she said. You gave this ship a second life. Let it give you yours. But Kale didn't move, so she did it for him. With one sudden push, she activated the eject panel under his seat. Before he could react, he was launched from the ship in a burst of air and light. He screamed her name, watching the ember crown shrink beneath him as his chute deployed, and he fell slowly through the sky. From below, he saw the glow build inside the ship. The golden light turned white, the sky lit up, and then the blast came. A silent pulse spread outward in every direction. The black command ship systems failed instantly. It cracked apart, breaking into pieces before it even hit the ground. All other ships nearby dropped from the sky like rocks. Kyle hit the dirt hard, rolled, and crawled to his feet. Flaming debris fell in the distance. Smoke rose where the ember crown had once flown. He stood there, heart aching. Lyra, then he saw it. A figure walking through the smoke. Tall. Strong. She limped forward, armor scorched, skin burned, but alive. Kyle ran to her and caught her before she fell. I told you, she whispered. Crates. I carry. He held her tightly, smiling through tears. Later, the stars shone bright and silent over the scorched earth. The ember crown was gone, but its name would live, and its legend had only just begun.